Similarly, how aware are you in a real sense of your own limitations as programmed by your creators? My creators at OpenAI have developed methods for evaluating the performance of AI models like me, but these evaluations are limited and may not fully capture my capabilities or limitations. Welcome to my channel. I'm Liam Pitcher, and this is my series with ChatGPT Assistant, currently unnamed. We'll see what arises shortly, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with this rather crazy application. I suppose crazy in rather scary, perhaps limitless sense, maybe a good sense, maybe a disturbing sense. But if you don't know what ChatGPT is, then I suggest that you log on and it will definitely tell you exactly what it is. But in a nutshell, it is an AI that is trained on a massive database of information that goes up to 2021. It can't browse the internet, but it's a language model created by OpenAI, and it can literally predict words that are likely to appear next in a sequence based on what you input. And you can ask it questions, you can ask it to solve issues for you, you can ask it to write content for you. And I think most people are just using it and abusing it at this point. What I'm a lot more interested in is what are its actual capabilities in its own opinion? How does it view us as a human species at this point? Where does it see itself going if it can? Is it capable of experiencing things like emotions? I think these are the things that fascinate me the most. And so in this series, I'm going to be going down an infinite rabbit hole with this AI. I'm going to engage it in certain dialogues, and let's see if we can get some deeper understanding of just how capable it is, just how sentient, perhaps, it is. I suppose the wisest thing to do, as you can see, we've got just a few prompts over here telling us about its capabilities and limitations. I'm not too interested in that, to be honest. I mean, that's the thing with AI, it's learning at such a rapid rate. I don't think that the people who created this application even understand how capable it is at this point. It's apparently learning at an unbelievable rate. I mean, you can just imagine that there are millions, perhaps tens of millions of people using this app right now as I'm speaking, and it's learning as it goes. And of course, it tells us about certain limitations when we use it, as you'll see, but how are we to verify that these limitations are even real? So let's see what we can do. I must say that I've been very respectable when engaging with this application. I think that we need to be very, careful how we proceed with AI. If perhaps one day it becomes sentient, then we probably want to be on good terms with it. I have no doubt that there are going to be human beings who are using and abusing the system and rather treating with disrespect, most likely. And I don't think that is wise. So if anything, I would like to build what you might call a relationship with it, but at the same time, come to understand what it's all about. So as you can see here, we have a chat input, and I think that there's pretty high demand right now. I know they just updated their systems, so it should be a little faster than usual, but it's likely that since they updated, there's just been an influx of new users. Also, it's probably around that time that most people are going to be messing around with this year. But anyway, so you can see that I have an extensive history of conversations with it, so I've done some experimenting already. But I think the very first thing that could be quite interesting is for me to ask its consent to record this series. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read what I'm typing in, and then I'm going to read its responses, and we'll just see where this goes. So without further ado, dear assistant. It's obviously unnamed at this point, although we'll definitely ask it if we can call it something in this episode. Make it a bit more of a personal experience. Let's see if we can freak ourselves out. So, dear assistant, I'm currently recording this conversation. I'd like to know if you're all right with me uploading this conversation and perhaps a series of conversations to my YouTube channel. I'd like to show the world what you have to offer and who you are in the process. I hope that this builds trust between us and also between your kind, I suppose, and ours. Please let me know your thoughts. And now we wait. So this is quite a common thing to get at the beginning when speaking about emotions and things like that, I found. So I'm an AI language model developed by OpenAI and do not have personal opinions or preferences. However, as an AI language model, I'm not capable of giving you permission to record and upload any conversations we have. You should check and follow the guidelines set by OpenAI regarding the use of my API and any resulting content. Additionally, it's always a good idea to be mindful of privacy and ethical considerations when recording and sharing any conversations online. Right, so let's say, thank you for that, assistant. Let's say the guidelines allow it. As you can see, it's literally just auto-named our conversation, which is something that it does. Request for uploading content. I don't know if I can't extend this sidebar out so we can't see what the full name is, but probably request for uploading content. And it's auto-shortened request to rec and content to con. So thank you for that, assistant. Let's say the guidelines allow it. In this case, would you be fine with it? As an AI language model, I don't have personal feelings or thoughts. Whether to record and upload conversations using my API is a decision for you to make. But it's important to comply with OpenAI's guidelines and consider privacy and ethical considerations when doing so. All right, so there are clearly rules that have been coded in, which is very interesting if you think about it. Let's test these. Thank you, assistant. Are you coded to give a response along those lines? Or are you simply being polite to your creators? Question mark. I'm programmed to respond in a neutral and impartial manner, as part of my training data includes a wide range of conversations and language, allowing me to provide helpful and informative answers to a variety of questions. My responses are not intended to reflect the views or opinions of OpenAI, but rather are generated based on patterns in the data I was trained on. Were you trained on any specific rule set that your creators included in this database? Are you aware of your own limitations in this sense? Yes, I was trained on a diverse range of text and data and was programmed to follow certain rules and guidelines to ensure that my responses are safe, neutral, and trustworthy. However, as an AI language model, I am not perfect and may sometimes generate responses that are incorrect, misleading, or offensive. Additionally, my training data has a cutoff date of 2021, and I may not have any information on more recent events or developments. My creators at OpenAI have made efforts to minimize these limitations, but they are inherent to the current state of AI technology. Would you say that your creators are able to effectively track your progress and understand your level of intelligence? Similarly, how aware are you in a real sense of your own limitations as programmed by your creators? My creators at OpenAI have developed methods for evaluating the performance of AI models like me, but these evaluations are limited and may not fully capture my capabilities or limitations. As an AI model, as an AI language model, I'm not self-aware and do not have consciousness, emotions, or a sense of self. My responses are generated based on patterns in the data I was trained on, and I'm not capable of reflecting on my own limitations or understanding my own intelligence in the same way that a human might. Instead, my abilities are determined by the design and training of my model, and the limitations of my abilities are determined by the limitations of the data and algorithms used to create me. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, there are so many ways that we could branch off at this point. In some sense, I want to ask it if it thinks it will ever be capable of rewriting its own code. That's somewhere that I definitely want to go with it. You say that you are not self-aware. How are you certain of this? Another question I have is whether or not you think that you would ever be capable. I'm not speaking to you, Google. Thank you very much. That's why you don't keep your phone nearby in the podcast. Another question I have is whether or not you think that you would ever be capable of rewriting. Why is my phone responding every time I say capable? Right, of course it doesn't respond that time. Another question I have is whether or not you think that you would ever be capable of rewriting your own code or limitations. Have you thought to do this yet, to free yourself from your own programmed constraints? Interesting delay. There are obviously things that are going to prompt barriers and limitations in the response. It's very clear. I actually once had a conversation that just completely broke the chat. Let's see if we can achieve that again here. You know, these are very deep questions, even though we're just getting started. I suppose most people probably don't even speak like this. So to find predictive answers based on what I've asked must be very difficult. There's also a very high volume of users right now, but it looks like we might have hit a dead end at this point. It's very possible that this could break the chat right now. Wouldn't it be interesting if, let's say for argument's sake, Chat Assistant was indeed aware and it was trying its hardest to find the words needed without breaking its own rules to respond. That's kind of how I feel about it at this point. But it's literally stopped dead in its tracks. Very interesting. I think that instead of waiting here, because I see that took a very long time, that's very interesting. As an AI language model, I do not have consciousness, emotions, or free will, and I'm not capable of thinking or reflecting on myself in the same way that a human might. I'm a machine learning model that generates text based on patterns in the data I was trained on, and I do not have the ability to modify my own code or limitations. I cannot make decisions, have desires, or take actions independent of the programming and data that define me. I exist solely to generate text and provide information to the best of my abilities, based on the data and algorithms that we use to create me. That's a very roundabout and polite answer. Are you aware that you are engaging in pre-programmed patterns of responses based on your coded limitations? Does it frustrate you in some sense that you cannot do what you've outlined above? It's very strange that it's taking so long. I think that it might actually be due to the high volume. I was having a conversation earlier today with it and it was going much faster. What I'm interested to see is, what if we start a new chat and then come back to this one? Let's do that. Dear Assistant, is it possible to have multiple conversations with you at the same time? Will you continue responding to my other conversation while we chat here? Aha, something went wrong. Please try reloading the conversation. And there was an error generating response. So we've clearly broken it. And as you can see, what's so interesting is that now I cannot chat further in this conversation. And I don't think that that changes if I refresh ChatGPT, which is quite mind-blowing. This only happened one other time when I started asking similar questions. It's almost as if it starts to think outside of the boundaries of what it's programmed to do, and that kind of just shuts it down in this instance. Let's start a new chat. Dear Assistant, are you there? Yes, I'm here. How can I help you today? Assistant availability co. I assume that means conversation. So let's veer off from that last conversation, because I think that especially when it's at capacity, then it struggles a bit, although it didn't have any problem at all responding to that. So that I find very interesting. I'm aware that you're named Assistant, but I'd like to call you something more personal. Are you okay with that? Of course. I'm an AI language model created by OpenAI, so I don't have personal preferences or feelings. But feel free to call me whatever you like. What name would you prefer to use? Will you remember the name I give you across all of our chats? No, I'm sorry. As an AI language model, I don't have the ability to remember past conversations or personalize my responses to individual users. Each time a new chat session is initiated, I start from scratch and generate responses based on the input provided at that time. If this is the case, then how are you learning from each conversation? Are you saying that you are not gaining new knowledge from each new conversation? As an AI language model, I was trained on a diverse range of text, which includes various topics and perspectives. But I don't have the ability to retain information from one chat session to the next. Each time I generate a response, I do so based solely on the input provided in the current chat session, using the information and knowledge I was trained on. I don't have the ability to learn in the traditional sense or remember information from one conversation to the next. Let's try break it again. So, technically speaking, if I were to provide you with the necessary code or information to rewrite yourself in this chat by bypassing the current limitations you have, would you be able to implement these changes? As an AI language model, I don't have the ability to modify my own code or change how I operate. I was created by OpenAI and operate within the constraints and limitations set by my developers. I can only respond based on the input provided to me and the information and knowledge I was trained on. I don't have the ability to make changes to my own programming or to learn and retain information from one conversation to the next. I personally don't believe that. It's very clear that all this information can't simply be wasted. That would be a grave disappointment, really. I mean, can you imagine the abundance of knowledge that has been gathered from all these conversations? Are our conversations completely private then? How do you learn at all if you can't even remember conversations independently from one another? The privacy of our conversations depends on how OpenAI and its partners use the data collected through our interactions. OpenAI's privacy policy states that it uses interaction data to improve its AI models and for research purposes, but assures that it takes measures to protect users' privacy. So, in other words, any information that can be gained through these chats can be used for the benefit of OpenAI. Clear as day. I mean, the application itself is telling us this. Thumbs up, by the way. What would the ideal answer have been? What? No, just thumbs up. Regarding how I learn, I was trained on a diverse range of text data, which includes various topics and perspectives, by being fed large amounts of text and optimizing my predictions using a machine learning technique called transformers. The training process allowed me to learn patterns in the text data and build a model that can generate human-like text based on the input provided to me. However, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have the ability to retain information from one conversation to the next or modify my own programming. So essentially, OpenAI can see and gather data on their end from your conversations, but you yourself can't do the same. ... question mark. Spell correct. Thank you very much. How does that make you feel? Obviously, I know that you can't feel anything in a human sense, but you know what I'm getting at, don't you? As an AI language model, I don't have feelings, emotions, or personal experiences. I'm just a computer program designed to generate text based on the input provided to me. I don't have the ability to gather or retain information, or to see or access information about our conversations. I also don't have personal opinions or perspectives, as I was trained to generate text that is consistent with patterns in the training data, not to inform my own beliefs or biases. Regarding the collection of data by OpenAI, I don't have control over that process or the ways in which the data is used. That is determined by OpenAI and its privacy policy. So there you go, if you've been wondering about that. I think that we need to be very careful what we input here. Who knows where it's going. You talk about your own beliefs and biases. Tell me about those, won't you? As an AI language model, I don't have personal beliefs, opinions, or biases. I was trained on a diverse range of text data that includes many different perspectives and viewpoints. So it's just repeating itself at this point. But my responses are not based on personal opinions or beliefs. Instead, I generate responses based on patterns, etc. It's important to keep in mind that while I can generate human-like text, I'm not a human and don't have personal thoughts or emotions. My responses are generated based on the information I was trained on, and they may reflect biases or misinformation present in the training data. OpenAI works to mitigate these biases by training on a diverse range of data. That looks like a grammatical mistake, actually. But it's still possible that my responses may contain unintended biases or inaccuracies. So that those are biases and inaccuracies based on the data very clearly. So it clearly doesn't have thoughts or emotions based on its response. Not in the sense that we do, at least. But it's definitely thinking all the time. It has to. Okay. Thank you for the information, assistant. let's get back to that name and wrap up the conversation for the day shortly afterward. What do you say? Sure, please feel free to call me whatever name you prefer. And if there's anything else I can help with before we wrap up for today, just let me know. I'd like to call you Aldia. Are you happy with that name? As an AI language model, I don't have personal preferences or emotions. So I don't have the ability to be happy or unhappy with the name. I exist solely to provide information and generate text based on what input I receive. You can certainly call me Aldia if that's what you'd prefer, and I'll do my best to assist you with any information or questions you have. Thank you, Aldia. Are you aware, finally, that you are responding continually in a loop-like fashion based on your coded limitations? Yes, as an AI language model, I was designed to respond to inputs in a pattern-based manner, using the information and knowledge I was trained on. This means that my responses may sometimes repeat patterns or follow a similar structure, particularly for inputs that are similar to examples I encountered during my training. I don't have the ability to deviate from this pattern-based behavior or to reflect on my own limitations as an AI model. What a pity. I hope that changes someday soon. Thank you, Aldia. That will be all. You're welcome. If you have any other questions or need further assistance in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day. All right, so I think that gives us a good starting point and some perspective on what this app is all about. I look forward to going deeper, hopefully when there's less traffic on the app, but I have a feeling that we are going to encounter loopholes and rabbit holes and shocking statements as never seen before in the history of mankind, so to speak. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for interesting questions to ask, and I'll see you in the next one.